We're back here on the Chip Shot Football Podcast to now start talking about the Super Bowl a little bit more in detail because when we return after this weekend and we're back here doing the shows next week, we'll finally have one team left. Out of all 32, there will be one team left remaining standing over the rest of the league, right? When the Eagles take on the Chiefs in the Super Bowl 59, and it'll be for everything, right? All the marbles, the obvious storylines, right? With the Chiefs playing for history, the Eagles trying to get their revenge, so and so, and trying to take advantage of this opportunity, right? And it is something we're going to get into, but to have another chance at playing the Chiefs and knocking them off and, you know, giving this very talented team, this great collection of players, probably the most talented team in the NFL, something to kind of show for all their work that they put in this season. So with that, it was only 2 seasons ago when these two teams played, and the Chiefs came out on top. Just to remind you guys, 38-35, despite one of Jalen Hurts' best games of his career, arguably his best game of his career. But they couldn't get it done. That turnover proved to be pretty costly, and then there was that controversial call at the end, and the Chiefs ended up winning by a game-winning field goal, basically. But now the Eagles got this second chance with virtually the same team and adding the ultimate game changer in Saquon Barkley, as well as some very, very, game-changing catalyst kind of rookies as well, and Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, these guys coming on, and development of Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, and Jordan Davis as well. So it feels like every move that the Eagles have made this offseason has turned into gold each and every time, even especially bringing a guy on like Zach Bond. We mentioned him before, only on a one-year deal from the Saints. No real, not too many expectations placed on Zach Bond when he was signed, but now, you look at him and he's played like one of the best linebackers in the NFL. Always feels like he's around the ball and always feels like he's making a play some way or the other. So it's been fantastic for the Eagles how everything's worked out for them. But, on the other side, you got the experience of the Kansas City Chiefs, right? They can become the first team ever to win 3 consecutive Super Bowls. They're the first team ever to play in 5 Super Bowls over a 6-year span. And even I would say with more doubt than there was last year, because this year they were dealing with the injuries. The left tackle really wasn't right, and it was a big problem. And, you just really didn't know if they were ever going to get to this point, right? Because at one point you're thinking, all right, they won back-to-back, but there's been a couple teams that have won back-to-back Super Bowls. So what's going to be the difference with them? Is the fatigue going to catch up with them? Is somebody else going to finally step up? There's no way they make it to a Super Bowl, right? That's never been done. But lo and behold, here we are, and the Chiefs are only one win away from standing alone as arguably in some people's minds, the best dynasty in NFL history by doing something nobody's ever done before. And they've done it in a very different way. It's not very Chief-esque, if you would. They don't have the best stats. They don't have the best receivers on their team. The quarterback play wasn't among the best stat-wise, and they won a lot of fine margin games with blocked field goals, game-winning field goals, big calls at the end, big game-winning drives and stuff like that. And despite all the trials and tribulations of this season and the expectations as well, they still finished as the number one seed, and they're right back here a year later, a year after year after year, right? The last 3 years. So that's what we're dealing with, a very well-oiled machine that knows just what to do in these big moments, right? They got all the pieces that you need, and they're just running at a different level, at a different efficiency than everybody else, it feels like. But, more in this game. It's going to be fascinating how both just played, but, their styles appear to be different heading into this year as well, because Philly is all about the run game with Saquon and that offensive line very much being highlighted now as one of its most impactful pieces of this team, because before you knew it was probably the best or one of the best in the NFL, but you really couldn't they really couldn't hit their ceiling because, not to throw shade on Kenneth Gainwell or DeAndre Swift or Miles Sanders or anything like that, but none of them are Saquon Barkley, right? And with Saquon and fitting him in with this offensive line, it just hit levels that nobody thought were even reachable, right? And now we're seeing this identity take over. And last time around, where Jalen threw the ball very well and had a very good game through the air, now, this playoff run, it's not really been about him or A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith. It's all been about Saquon. So they changed their identity a little bit there, and it's worked wonders for them, leading them to this point. And then you look at the Chiefs a little bit, where, again, I kind of touched on it just a second ago, where they got their left guard playing left tackle. They don't even have Rashee Rice playing. They brought back Juju Smith-Schuster. They signed DeAndre Hopkins halfway through the year. Travis Kelce didn't have a historical regular season like he usually does. And, they've evolved into this ultimate game manager sort of team. And that's always been given the negative connotation. But the Kansas City Chiefs, I think they couldn't care less, quite honestly, if they're called game managers or anything like that, because they're very much okay with the level of efficiency, playing mistake-free football, running the ball at a great level, getting 4 to 5 yards each time, and just going up and down the field like that, right? They have the most amount of 10-plus play drives this season playing. Some people might call it dink and dunk. Some people might call it boring, but I would call it efficient, obviously mistake-free, and it's very adaptable. It's very, very chameleon-like, where it's able to change and take up very different forms to fit what they're trying to do, what kind of identity they're trying to be that season, right? Because they also brought in Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco got injured pretty roughly this year. Hollywood Brown wasn't really there at all this year, and they were relying on a rookie wide receiver, and, things that probably would have derailed a lot of other championship teams. The Chiefs just kept trudging along because they're able to be very adaptable and evolve to whatever the circumstance requires. And I think that's something that's not really highlighted in the kind of play, the kind of product that they put out there. So that's also very fascinating to see how we've seen the evolution of this team. Same thing with the Eagles, right? Making this game even more anticipated, I would say. But moving on now to the injuries a little bit, there's not really any for Kansas City. All of their players are expected to be 100%. And for the Eagles, it was a little weird because Jalen Carter was dealing with some sort of illness, but he was a full participant yesterday at practice, and I'm sure he was again today. So the reports are saying he's fine, that he should be good to go, so there's nothing to worry about there. But guys like Devontae Smith, Kenneth Gainwell, and Brandon Graham were all limited this week, but they're also expected to play, right? You'd expect nothing different because, what are they saving themselves for, right? So all those guys are expected to play. Devontae Smith was dealing with a little bit of a hamstring injury, Kenneth Gainwell with a knee injury, and Brandon Graham coming back from what we thought was going to be a season-ending injury to it was either his elbow or his tricep. I think it was something like that. But he looks to be ready to play and come back for what could be his last game as a Philadelphia Eagle. So those are really all the injuries. And also Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens were also battling with some injuries during the NFC Championship game, but they don't really appear on the injury report. So they're going to be out there regardless. So we're going to see everybody pretty much at full strength, which leads us to those players being at full strength to now matching them up against each other in the game. And the matchups I'm really looking forward to, one of them out of the three that I have on here is A.J. Brown going up against Trent McDuffie. And I mean, Trent McDuffie could be lined up on mostly anybody, but I feel like that one against A.J. is going to be very entertaining to watch because it's best on best. And, how many times are the Chiefs going to play man coverage? And how successful is Trent going to be just on an island over there with A.J. Brown? Usually it's a quick, push off a little bit, slant route, and Jalen Hurts has an easy completion there, or it's a go ball that AJ Brown's also very good at, and usually that's very hard to stop, right? You don't really have too many times where the corner completely smothers AJ Brown because he's very physical at the point of contact. He's fast, obviously, and has a huge catch radius as well. So for one guy to try and stop him like that, it's going to be a big task. But the Chiefs are certainly going to need something like that in a game where, you're playing for everything. So it's going to be best on best there, and we'll see who wins that matchup on Sunday. And then the second one I'm looking at is the Eagles defensive line against the Chiefs offensive line. Because like I mentioned, you have Joe Thuney out there at left tackle. He's probably going to be trying to block Nolan Smith, who's very fast and very agile off the edge. And then in the middle, you have a backup left guard in there with Caliendo going up against maybe like Jordan Davis, Malik Williams, or across the interior defensive line, Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter against Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, and then on the other side, you got Jawan Taylor trying to block, I don't even know who would be, like Josh Sweat or something, or maybe Nolan Smith is on that side. They rotate a lot of guys, but that middle part of that defensive line is going to be huge with a backup in there now. And, with those defensive linemen, you'd imagine that a bunch of them are going to be rotating to that side. So how well does Caliendo kind of stick up and stand up to that challenge, right? They're going to need him to because of the offense they run, the RPOs, and just protecting Patrick at all costs, obviously, right? You just don't want him to fuel the pressure every single time. So that's going to be a huge battle to watch. And then the last one, it was going to be easy to just put Saquon against like the defensive line of the Chiefs, right? But I'm really looking at Saquon going up against Nick Bolton and Justin Reed, because the defensive line, like, that's the obvious answer, right? But Nick Bolton and how many times he can be in and around the line of scrimmage, and really with a middle linebacker, they're kind of matched up with the running back when you see the lineups out there on the field, and how effective can Nick Bolton be on getting off blocks, at getting into the backfield and disrupting things, right? Running downhill and blowing up some gap that Saquon's trying to run through, right? And being a menace like that, but also Justin Reed, who does a lot of the similar stuff. He's always in the backfield. He's always coming up and making tackles, and I'm sure he's probably going to be trying to cover Saquon on some possessions as well. Those two guys are the Swiss Army knives for the Chiefs defense, right? They do a lot. They line up in a bunch of different spots, and both of them, you're going to see if the Chiefs are doing a good job at stopping the run. You're going to see number 20 back there and number 32 back there as well, just everywhere across the field trying to keep hold of Saquon. So really those two guys, I'm going to see how involved they are in trying to stop Saquon Barkley on Sunday. But now we get to the prediction, right? Who is going to win Super Bowl 59? I'm going to go with, I think the more I thought about it, I would have been like fine with either team winning. Because the Eagles winning, it'd be like a great culmination, like I said. It would be great for Saquon, right? Also to put a great finish to a historical kind of career-defining season with this team and stuff like that. But I think I'm going to go with Kansas City because history's on their side when you're talking about Super Bowl rematches like this. And I think Steve Spagnuolo is going to have a great game plan against Jalen Hurts in this offense. I think there's going to be some points where he's going to really confuse Jalen, and there's going to be points in this game where you're just admiring how Spagnuolo is deploying his defense and really blurring the picture out there for Jalen Hurts. So I think that's going to be a huge effect on it. And the turnover battle, I think that's been a huge advantage for the Eagles recently. And I know their defense creates a lot of plays, and to that, I just don't think the Chiefs make a lot of mistakes like that. Hardly ever do they make a mistake like that and turn it over, especially in the Super Bowl. So I feel like that advantage, although it might not completely cripple the Eagles, I just feel like if they're not able to get at least one or two turnovers, that they're going to have to play pretty perfect all throughout this game. And I just don't know if they're able to be that flawless in this big of a moment quite honestly, for one of the first times this season, I just don't have enough confidence in them to say that they're capable of doing that. I feel like they're going to have their moments, and Jalen's going to make some big throws, but the longevity of it, the consistency of it, I would give that edge to the Chiefs, and kind of managing that throughout an entire game. There's a reason why they're always here and why they always seem to be in the game until the last possible second. So with that, it might be the boring pick, but like, how do you pick against the guy that's almost been to the Super Bowl each and every year he's been in the league, right? I mean, until I see someone beat him, other than Joe Burrow, I can't really go against Patrick. Sorry to anybody that thought I was going to go with the Eagles. So, yeah, I think the Chiefs are going to win. It'll probably be close. I don't think it'll be like a 30-30 kind of situation. Maybe like 28 to 24 or something like that. The Chiefs win. So it's still going to be a great game, still a great matchup to watch, but yeah, I'm going to go with the Chiefs. So that's the official prediction, and now moving on to the rest of the show. Another checkup on the Cincinnati Bengals. Their quarterback, Joe Burrow, recently talked about all their pending free agents and how he wants to keep all of them, but that's not the problem. It's keeping all of them, or as many as possible, but balancing that with adding a lot of help, especially on the defensive side. Can they do both, or is it unlikely? We're going to answer that question when we return after this.